This is an introduction to the pentel pocket brush, or brush pens like it, and to a certain degree regular brushes as well, for sketch work, compositional work, and general doodling on the go. So one of the first things to know about working with a brush, if you're a painter, you're somewhat familiar with this when comparing it to drawing. But if you haven't painted and you're just used to drawing, this is an important detail. You do not get the same kind of feedback from the tip of a brush as you do from pencil or pen. It's not hard when it connects to the page, so you don't feel it. You have to use your eyes. And you have to be very aware. For our first round classes, I talked to you a lot about using an artist extended tripod, or like that, or like this for sketching. But for the brush work, really the good old tripod, and even getting right on top of the brush like I do sometimes doing detailed work, like this kind of stuff. You want to be very close to the tip because you'll have more control. Now, if you want to have a more fluid long line, then you do back away and you hold it back here. So that'll let you do like we did in class more. So if you use a brush for gestural studies, then think about holding it like that. And remember that you're always pulling from the tip. You never want to go up this way because it just goes, yeah, that's no good. And you can ruin your brush that way, actually. You always want to pull down when holding a brush at an angle. Now you can get around this a little bit by adopting a Japanese calligraphy pen style, where you hold your brush vertically to the paper. And then you can rotate freely or move in different directions, make perfect circles even, like this. But as soon as you lean the brush over on its side, you start after worrying about the direction of the bristles. You always have to pull away from them in your strokes. You can go to the side a little bit, but if you start going towards the tip of the stroke, you'll get messy results. You can go sideways, but you want to be continuing to go down too. If you're going to do something where you come back around, you won't want to continue up too much with a lot of pressure on the brush. You can kind of do it. Get some fresh paper in the shot. If you do a light line like this, and you're just working with the tip, but even there, you see how it spludged out. That was the point where it was going the most against itself. So if you can help it, you don't do that. Instead, you do this, and you do this to finish the circle. Do it in 2 strokes. And you always pull away, and to the sides if you like, but always away from the tip. Now, to get familiar with the brush pen, I'm going to suggest that we do another one of those page of making marks. You can doodle a little bit, but resist the temptation, okay? Especially if you think you don't need to do this. You should do this even more then. So, you take the page, you start making some marks. We'll start up here, and we'll start with just short controlled strokes. I'm going to hold it right around the point where the ridge is here, and you're making this kind of motion with your hand. Using the wrist, bring the brush tip down, striking the page at a smooth, regular pace, and then lift back up again with the wrist. This is probably somewhat obviously called feathering. Move away from your starting point at an even pace. If you're right-handed, go off to the right. If you're left, to the left. It's harder to do this towards yourself, because then you can't see the lines you just made and properly gauge the distances. The quicker you can make the stroke, the straighter it will be. The slower you do it, the more wiggling and hesitation and small vibrations will get into your line. That's a general truth. This is true with your pencil drawing as well. It's one of the reasons why we wanted to move quickly and fluidly when doing dynamic gesture drawing. To create a nice, clean line, you want a fairly, not too rushed, but swift action. So, do several rows of lines like this. Fill up some space, See, I'm pushing down hard there. I want to try to see if I can refine my movement sometimes. Get it nice and thin on both ends. That means a nice gradual lift at the end of the stroke too. And you can work on your cross hatching while you're at it, turn the paper. You can do movements this way when you think about your hip wrist joint moving instead of your hand. Now, there's some real big advantages to using your wrist. Being a single joint, your lines will be consistently smoother than the ones made with several joints. So moving with the wrist is challenging to do short lines, but they'll also be shorter. Sorry, straighter. But definitely for longer lines, and particularly for very long lines, wrist and then elbow movements can give you the smoothest, sleekest line. Moving down towards your own elbow, again, you're using all the muscles in your hand instead, and the joints in your hand. You can do that with your arm as well, but now you're using your shoulder and your elbow. So let's play with check marks. See if you can make a nice consistent row of V's. Notice how when you start the stroke down, you get that nice calligraphy, straight line with a nice edge on both ends. You can do that in your drawing. Explore that for a bit. Going this way, we have that similar to a thin line. You can combine the two. If you get it down like this, you've got a bird. A whole flock of birds. You can try making it that way. Double stroke. Try some smooth back and forth motions and see how the brush behaves, because this is one of those challenging ones where you have to orient the brush so that you're never really going up and against itself. You go down the page to avoid that, or across this way. And do lots and lots and lots of pages of these. Do some little circles. If you're very light with the tip, you can do them in one stroke. But don't press too hard. Just use the tip of the brush. It's a good thing to experiment to see how thin you can get the line without losing touch with the paper. Remember that it's your vertical distance from the page that you're watching for then. And if you need glasses, you should be wearing them now, if you need them to see things closer to you. Because really your only cue is your eyesight. Again, notice I'm holding it very close to the tip for these because I'm trying to make small controlled motions. Now, if I wanted to enlarge that, I want to hold further away. Don't press down too hard like I did with that one. Keep mark making. Try some squiggly snake lines. Really fill up whole pages with this. And the goal, you can start doodling if you want, but the goal is to be really focusing on how the tool feels and how it responds, and what kinds of gestures with your hand make what kinds of marks on the paper. And you'll even notice that there's some sound. That definitely becomes a bit of feedback. I do little tiny marks like this sometimes, just to practice really tight control. Lots of little feathery lines, which I use in my shading quite a bit. You can do them with a thin pen, but the ones you do with a brush have infinitely more character and whimsy and movement. And well, damn it, they're dynamic. That is the name of the class, isn't it? So, if it's dynamic drawing you're after, I do declare that a tool like this will become your best friend.